Hello and welcome to the Module 2, Corruption in the Water Sector and the Need for Change Processes. This is Pilar Abello from the Stockholm International Water Institute, and I will be guiding you on this Module 2 from the Water Integrity online course. This second module is divided in 4 chapters. The first one is about introducing the different concepts, definition, and practices of corruption. Then the second chapter, it's about explaining why the water sector is prone to corruption. Then the third chapter, it's about identifying the different impacts that corruption in the water sector has. Then the fourth chapter is about understanding the different theoretical models to study the corruption phenomenon. So the word corruption does not have a commonly agreed definition. Normally, the two most commonly used definitions of corruption are the ones used in the first place, the one used by Transparency International and UNDP, which defines corruption as the misuse of entrusted power for private gain. And then the second one is the one from the World Bank, which defines corruption as the abuse of public office for private gain. As you can see in this second definition, the difference with the first one is that leaves out practices occurring between private agents solely. In this slide, you will find a short definition of the most common forms of corruption and economic crimes. I would like to say that in the material readings, you can also find extended definition and information on what all of them means. Next slide is about types of corruption. Then when we are talking about corruption, then you normally have that grand corruption, which is referring to those cases in where the value of the corrupt deal is quite significant. Then you have petty corruption, which is referring to everyday street level form of corruption, and it usually involves citizens, business that are engaging with lower level officers in small bribes. For example, then you have political corruption, which is referring to the misuse of political power for private gain. Bureaucratic corruption, which refers to that corruption that takes place in public administration. Then you have state capture, which is about those corrupt practices that are more used to influence or to change the rules of the game. This is normally referring to cases in which is bribing at higher level to change one specific law or policy or to fund different political parties and so on. And then you have systemic, or it's also called endemic corruption, which is referring to those situations or countries in which corruption is integrated at all levels, economic, social, and political levels. In this second chapter, you will be learning why the water sector is prone to corruption, the different drivers of corruption, such as, for example, the limited demand for accountability existing in developing countries in relation to the link between service providers and consumers, or, for instance, the low capacity and the lack of clear rules and responsibilities in the water sector. And those situations are allowing corruption to be happening in the water sector. In the next slide, we can learn about the different corruption practices in the water sector by the different subsectors. The first one is water service provision, then water resource management, hydropower, irrigation, and groundwater extraction. And then we can see what are the most common corrupt practices depending on the interaction. So if it's public and public interacting, public and private sector, or public and consumer interaction. The next chapter is about identifying corruption impacts. And this is very important to understand why it's important that we tackle corruption in the water sector. We can see that corruption has impacts on economic efficiency, on social equity, and then on environmental sustainability. On economic efficiency, the World Bank estimated that 20 to 40% of water sector finances were being lost every year to dishonest practices. So the first model is the principal agent model, which is often referred as the predominant theory of corruption. This model describes the relation between the agents and the principal, the persons, organizations, or society that are impacted by the actions and decisions. Most anti-corruption measures depart from the principal agent model, but there is also a vast body of research extending the basic model and even questioning its relevance. Then the second model is the fraud triangle theory, which amplifies the understanding of what exactly drives people to violate trust and engage in corruption or not. And this is complementing the principal agent model description of the relationship between the actors of corrupt transaction. Based on the insights of criminology, the author, Cressy, concluded that the answer is found in the interaction between pressure, opportunity, and rationalization. So this third model is looking at corruption from a collective action problem. So what happens when corruption is the norm? Some authors may argue that in such a context, not being corrupt might be riskier than corruption. Public officers might find themselves treated as outsiders or find that their careers become stalled and therefore choose to express support for the status quo simply to avoid the cost of being different. In those cases, systemic corruption problems can be explained by the collective action theories that highlight the importance of the norms of reciprocity, reputation, and trust, where individual action is at least partly influenced by expectations about how other individuals will act. And the last model is the need or greed-based corruption. This model suggests that citizens engage in corruption for different motivations. We have the greed motivation, in which a citizen is engaging because they want to receive extra advantages. And then we have the need motivation, and here is suggesting that citizens engage because they need to receive those services that they are entitled to. And here is suggesting that since there is a power imbalance, that leaves the citizens with few alternatives other than engage in corruption in order to receive services. This is particularly relevant for the water sector, in which if a citizen is being asked for a bribe, there is few options that they can have the service somewhere else. So they might engage in corruption because they need to receive water in order to survive. And this is all for Module 2. I hope you have enjoyed. You have extra information on the reading materials on the website. I am also available for you to contact me in case you are interested on knowing more information about any specific content provided on this module. I have also uploaded some videos, and see you on the forum and on the chat. And thank you very much. Bye-bye.